So today we're going to make some biochar, and there's a lot of different ways. If you look on the internet that people will tell you to make it. This is what works for me, and I just learned this from watching other people do different things. I always start with some of my brush I have from yard waste and stuff to get the fire hot. I have a pit here that I dug. It's not a great big pit because I don't need a whole lot at a time. But the most important thing is that it's at least 3 feet deep. The reason that it's 3 feet deep is because it's only going to get so much oxygen down there. And so the fire's not going to burn too much of the layer. Because as you layer, whatever's on top is what's going to burn, because that's where the oxygen is going to go. And when the bottom doesn't have any oxygen, it's not going to keep burning, but it'll be charcoal. It's like partially burned wood, and that's what charcoal is. This is what we're looking to make, where what you have left over is not ashes, but pieces of char. And see how easy that breaks up? And I break this up into smaller pieces, about like that. I'll show you how I do that later on also. And then I mix it with my compost, and we'll talk about that later because it has to be inoculated, but it's great, and it stays in your soil for basically forever. It doesn't break down, and it just invites more microbes into your soil basically, and your soil will hold moisture probably 10 times better. So anyways, I'm just going to start this now, and I'll talk through it as I do it. Any kind of fire starter is good to use for this. A little windy today, a little bit of wind. These are just little fire bricks that I've bought at, I think, Walmart. Just make sure it gets going good, because I don't want to drop it down in there and it go out. And I will say, always try to be safe. Be safe. You know, I got gloves on now. I'll probably burn my hand. All right, let's see how we do there. See if it'll stay going. So once I get this going, we'll just let this go for probably 20-30 minutes just to burn all this down good, and then we're going to put some bigger wood on top of that. So we're ready for the second stage. We probably waited a little too long, but since we were getting the fire started, it's not a big a deal, but we'll watch close for the rest of them. But what we're looking for is like this right here, where you can see there's still structure, but it's ashy on the outside. That's totally gone there, but that's okay. So what we'll do now is we're going to layer another layer on there and let it do the same thing. And we'll keep doing this until the pit's basically full. And the fuller it gets, the better char it makes, actually. This is just old packing wood from a package. Would we get it with this? Something, I don't even know. I also use pieces that I used last time that didn't quite cook all the way, if you will. I go ahead and try to cook them up again. And you'll see as that gets hot and going, the smoke's going to start rolling over right back into it, because it's going to be sucking for oxygen. This is the finished product. I actually, after burning probably 5 layers, and as you'll see, when I pick it up, it breaks all the way down to nothing. And I'll show you what I do to process it the whole way down. The only thing is, and you might have this problem too, and it's not a big problem, but I always seem to have to put it out before it burns up too much. because if you let it go too far, you're going to get ash, and you don't want ash. And so I always have a top layer that I take off that didn't quite burn up. And what I'll do is I'll burn that right in the middle of the, when I make more, I'll just throw it back in and it'll finish working. Some of that's, even on the end of that, you see that's charcoal. That's charcoal right there. And that's what you're doing to the wood, basically. It's like wood burns in two processes or stages, I guess. And the first stage is when you get the biochar. You're burning in a pit because it's low oxygen. And so as you burn, the one layer gets done and you throw another layer on top. The oxygen, there's not enough oxygen to keep burning that lower layer. So it transfers to the next layer up. And so it keeps your wood from burning all the way down to ash. It's not rocket science. I'm sure you could mess it up. The easiest thing to do as far as messing up is letting it burn too long. And when it gets to this point at top, when I think it's ready to put another layer in or put it out. So when I'm done is what I do is I take my hose, or you can use anything, water, and I put the fire out. And this is important because you have to make sure the fire's out. What's great about my pit is it's clay on the bottom part after the topsoil. And so it fills up with water, which helps a lot. But you want to make sure it's out, all the way out. Even if you have to come back later and check it, make sure it's out. Because if it's not, it'll burn overnight, smolder, and you'll end up with ash. And if you spray it and you think it's out, spray it some more. Make sure it's out. And so what I do with it then, I'll end up shoveling that out pretty soon, and I store it in here. But when I go to process it, so right here in this bucket, see, I did this five-gallon bucket full, and that's what I dig out. I take this, I think this is an maybe 1/8-inch strainer, fairly small. You could go a little bit bigger, but not much bigger. And then I just take my sledgehammer, or I use them like my maul sometimes too, something heavy, and I just beat it down, break it up. This is pretty easy. You can visibly see when you looks like you got a lot of it broken up good. This is smashing really well. It's breaking up really well, so that means making the biochar was pretty successful this time. And then I'll take it. I either use my scoop or my glove, and I'll just put it in put a couple handfuls in the strainer, and then I just strain it through, just, rub it a little bit. Of course, it's a little bit bigger than the bucket, but I just be careful. If you lose some, that's no big deal either. Just whatever's good. Sometimes I'll break it up, sometimes I won't. But what happens is I'll put it over in another bucket. When I go through it some more, I'll go back and break that up again. I'll probably go through it like 3 times, and then after that, if it's still pieces, I usually just throw it off, because that probably means that those pieces aren't all the way done. It's got a little wet the other day, so I mean, it doesn't really matter in the end, but sometimes it's easier to process when it's dry, but it's working all right. And then what you end up with is this right here is the finished product. That right there is what you're looking for. This is great for your plant beds, but you don't want to put this in your garden soil right where you're going to plant at, right off the bat, because it has to be what they call inoculated. If you don't do that, it's going to suck a lot of the nitrogen out of your plant bed, which you don't want. But once it's inoculated, it's great. So how do you inoculate it? A couple ways. A lot of people will take like some of their compost, 5-gallon bucket, and fill it up 3/4 full of water, like a towel or any kind of cheesecloth. You put a couple handfuls or a shovelful of compost in it, and just like make a compost tea. You can also just put the compost in here, which I've done it that way, into the water. It doesn't really matter. But what matters is this gets put in there, and I would let it set at least a day. Just let it set in there. And then you're going to have like a sludge when you're done, but that's fine. And you just put that sludge right into on top of your garden soil and of course work it in. The way I do most of mine, I'll show you right now. I did some this morning. So this is my active compost pile right now. Well, I mean, they're all active, but this is the one that I'm working on right now. I'll just sprinkle it on top like that, as you can see. And then as I build this up, maybe I'll go 3 or 4 more layers. I'll put another layer of biochar in there. And then as this gets turned and used, it's going to get worked into it. And since your compost is working, it's going to inoculate that biochar. So when it goes into your garden soil, it's ready to go. It's very beneficial. I think it is. It just makes your compost and your garden soil work so much better. It does take some time to make it. Of course, I like fire, so it's not too bad of a thing. I think John will tell you that. I think he likes fire too. Some people sell this like 5-pound bags are like 20, 25 bucks. So if I really wanted to, I could make a killing. And people do that. The first bag I bought on eBay, and I'm sure it was that much. But it's easy to make yourself. I saw someone who did this same thing, and they used that like in their smoker or in their charcoal, like lump coal that you can buy in the store. And that's another way you can make it. Say you don't want to go through all this process. You can go to the store. Any store that sells charcoal usually has lump coal. Most of them do anyways. I know Walmart carries it. And you can take that and do the same thing I just did. You can just put it in a bucket and crush it up and run it through a strainer. And then you make your own that way too, very easy. So anyways, give me some suggestions you like, comment. I'm sure someone will tell me I'm doing something wrong, but that's fine. But I hope you can learn from this. That's how I learned, watching other people. But we'll see you soon. I think John's planning on giving us an update on the grass in a couple days. John and I were looking at it earlier, and the grass is growing already. Now we'll just see how it holds and how it works. We're probably going to do a couple more patches. Anyways, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for watching.